What's up, everybody? It is your boy Toxy Boyo, and I was going to script this video, but the problem with that is that I scripted a video about Tony Stark maybe a month ago, and I recorded it maybe 3 weeks ago, as of the time that I'm recording this video, and I have not yet begun to edit that. So if I were to have scripted this video, you may have never seen it. So we're just kind of gonna go with the flow on this one, and hopefully what I say comes through and makes sense in some sort of way. I'm already screwing it up. I can't believe it. But today we're talking about Invincible, so I guess I'll start with a simple question. Which of the 3 seasons of Invincible that we have so far is your favorite? I feel pretty strongly that a lot of people like myself are going to say season 1. This has nothing to do with animation or budget. That's not at all what I'm going to be talking about here. None of that is the important thing. I just want to talk about what it is in the tone and the pacing and the atmosphere of the first season that seasons 2 and 3 are lacking, that make that one feel as though it's the best one even now, 5 years later. Now there's a chance, based on what I'm going to say here, that season 4 could be just as good. I don't think it'll be better though, because it's still going to have some of the same problems that seasons 2 and 3 have had. But let's just dive in and get to the bottom of why I think season 1 works so well compared to the others. The first thing that I want to highlight is kind of just, Mark is obviously at his youngest at this point in the story, and it's a lot more forgivable watching him get obliterated in every major fight that he engages in at the start of his career. It's more tolerable to watch him make all these rookie mistakes and find himself in way over his head when he's just starting out. It kind of loses its charm when he's been invincible for over a year, because, you know, spoilers for anyone that has not read the comics, even after the Conquest stuff, he's going to keep making rookie mistakes. He's going to keep making bad decisions. He's going to keep putting people that he cares about at risk, because he is not necessarily a great superhero. And like I said, it's charming, it's cute, it's to be expected. It comes with the territory of like training to operate in this new world when he's just now starting out. It's nice to see how much he cares about every little person when he's not able to save someone, when someone gets hurt on his watch. Watching him react to that, you know, it's a nice change of pace from watching superheroes destroy a whole city for the sake of stopping the bad guy, and then they just eat shawarma afterwards. Another important thing is that in the early stages of the show, the world that Invincible takes place in just feels so much bigger. It feels so vast, and there's so many moving parts, not in a way that it feels like it's overly complicated or anything, but it feels more like this is a world inhabited by superheroes. And you see them in action throughout the entirety of seasons 2 and 3, but I don't know, there's something about watching Mark enter this world that does make it feel bigger. When they're having tryouts for the new Guardians of the Globe, stuff like that, it's just more interesting to see Mark pair up with different heroes, and to watch him be shown the ropes not just by Omni-Man, but by his peers that have been doing it for a little bit longer than him, watching him learn from Rex and from Eve and make friends with these other superheroes. All that stuff works for me too. Not to mention the stuff going on in his personal life. He feels very similar to Spider-Man towards the beginning of his career, having to try to balance the two parts of his life, trying to keep the secret and maintain his promises and his engagements, his responsibilities. You know, the high school element is always going to be fun when it comes to young superheroes, and that stuff gets phased out as Mark gets older, obviously. It's also, I think, worth mentioning that while I'm not a huge fan of Amber's characterization in season 1, I do think that Mark being with a character like Amber rather than a character like Eve is important. It's always going to be more interesting to have Peter be with Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane than Black Cat or Black Widow or something like that. More interesting to have Superman be with Lois Lane than with Wonder Woman. I think that for characters that have a distinct delineation between their civilian life and their superhero life, their significant other should reflect that. I don't prefer to see them with other super people. Now, in the comics, I do love Mark and Eve as a couple. But for the sake of how the show is being adapted, it's important to highlight that the show simply is more interesting with the secret identity element to it as well. Not that I love secret identities, because it's pretty much always going to be the same drama over and over again from one show to the next, from one character to the next. But it's like, okay, well, how much is Amber willing to put up with? How is Mark going to explain this one away? What's going to happen since he's almost dead? Stuff like that. I feel like that adds a little bit more mystery and tension to the show. Speaking of mystery, I've buried the lead long enough. Let's talk about the major thing that actually separates this season from the two that came after it. If you're a fan of Invincible, let me know in the comments who your favorite Invincible character is. Doesn't have to be a hero, just any character. It could be Cecil, it could be Donald. Leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And I actually have one quick thing to say. I'll be right back. Pardon the interruption, it's your boy Toxic Boyo, and I wanted to take a brief moment to let you know about the Toxic Touch Productions Patreon. I'm not currently monetized on YouTube, but I still want to bring you the best content that I possibly can. I want to make those videos that you love, and I want them to be the best that they can be. But I need a little help. That's where you guys come in. If you want to support me directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/ToxicTouchProductions, or click the link in the description or the pinned comment. For even just $5 a month, you can get your name included in the credits at the end of the video, gain access to exclusive channels on the Discord, and you get specialized merch at no extra cost. It only gets better as the tiers go higher. Go check it out. Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting my dreams. Now let's get back to the video. Now, the absolute biggest factor that is present in Season 1 that is not so much in Seasons 2 and 3 that makes it feel so much more tight and concise and well-paced is Omni-Man. Not just the character of Nolan Grayson, but more so what he represents. It's more the fact that he is this overarching threat, and he injects mystery into the story by virtue of him being there. At the end of the very first episode, he kills the Guardians of the Globe. Why would he do that? Why would the guy who's basically the Superman of this universe kill all the other superheroes that are protecting the world? Even when he shows up, they don't understand. They can't fathom why he would do something like that. They figure he must be being mind controlled. And then he insists that he has no recollection of it. He gets agitated when he's pressed about it. You know, and it's something that he keeps a secret from his family. Maybe he doesn't remember it. Or maybe he's lying about it. You're not necessarily sure right away. But he does start acting different after Mark gets his powers. Because if he needed to kill the Guardians of the Globe, he could have done that whenever. Why did he wait until Mark got his powers? Why is he so much more aggressive towards Mark? Why is he losing his temper so easily all the time now? And he's so intimidating at the same time. He's a lot like Homelander in the early seasons of The Boys, where every time he's on screen, you kind of wonder what's going to happen. You wonder if he's going to kill somebody, if he's going to freak out, you know, especially when he's in a room with a mere mortal. One of my favorite scenes of the entire season is when he visits Art, after Art and Debbie have been talking about Nolan having obviously done something to the Guardians. They still don't know why or what could have caused him to do that. But he visits Art and it's like, yeah, let's have a beer. Just that entire scene is so stressful because it would be so easy for Nolan to eradicate this man. And he demonstrates it when he pops the cap off the bottle. It's a subtle reminder of like, hey, this could be your head if you get too close, if you piss me off, you know? And it's little stuff like that, and the interactions between Mark and Nolan, where Nolan's like, you know, this is a big responsibility that you're taking on now. The world just got a whole lot bigger for you, you know. If you want to do what I do, if you want to be strong enough to do what's necessary, you have to start looking at things differently. Mark is saying, I want to do what you do, I want to be just like you. But that takes on a double meaning after you see what kind of person Nolan truly is. You can kind of compare it to other shows in the, you know, in the industry. You can look at like the CW, DC shows, where they go for an overarching mystery pretty much every season regarding the villain and their identity, and it starts to feel repetitive. This one is a change of pace, and it's refreshing because you know right away who the villain is, at least for this season. The mystery comes from, why did he do what he did? Like, why is he pretending to be a hero? How far is he willing to take that? What's going to happen when Mark finds out? And it's hard to explain. The mystery is less so who's the villain and more so how is everyone going to find out and what's going to happen when they do find out. And can they stop this guy? He seems to be the most powerful superhero on the planet. So the thing with seasons 2 and 3 is that yes, there are main villains. Season 2, Angstrom Levy, Season 3, Conquest. But there's not really anywhere near as much build-up or intrigue or mystery around these villains, because Angstrom Levy has a strong presence in Season 2, Episode 1. And then I want to say he appears 2, maybe 3 more times, very briefly, not interacting with Mark at all before he has his final confrontation with Mark at the end of the season. You know, the Viltrumites are much more of a presence in Season 2 than Angstrom Levy is, and that's interesting in itself. You know, all the Viltrumite stuff is interesting. It's always going to be. That's the overarching plot of the entire show. But when you break it down season by season, Season 2 starts to feel more like it just has random events happening than Season 1 did. Season 1 felt more concise, more directed, because there was a central antagonistic force of Nolan pushing the story forward by centering the entire story around what he did, why he did it, and what to do about it. Angstrom just kind of pops up after that, interacts with Mark twice in the season, and then he's gone until over halfway through the next season. And Nissa kind of just pops up out of nowhere. Obviously, Nualzot pops up out of nowhere to bring Mark to Thraxa, where the other Viltrumites kind of just pop up out of nowhere. They just so happened to arrive a couple minutes after Mark got there. That's kind of what I mean by events are just happening. When you're writing a story and you're having events take place in some sort of sequential order, you don't want the connective tissue between plot point A and plot point B to be the words "and then." You know, this is something that Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park have given lectures about. You want there to be causality between events. You want event A to cause event B, not just take place before. You don't want "and then," you want "so therefore." Or "but." You know, they need to get here to do this thing, but this is in the way, so they need to try something else. Or this happened, so therefore something else happened. Season 1 has a lot of that because they're trying to figure out why Nolan murdered the Guardians of the Galaxy, what his true purpose on Earth is, and us as the audience, we're trying to figure that stuff out too, and we're also trying to figure out, like I said before, what's going to happen when Mark and everybody else finds out the truth. Season 2 just doesn't have that because Angstrom is in less than one full episode. Like, I want to say that Alan the Alien and Omni-Man have more screen time in Season 2 than Angstrom Levy does, and he's the main antagonist of that season. And this is something that continues into Season 3 to a different extent. I can't necessarily say if it's greater or lesser, just right off the top. I kind of have to think about it for a second. I think in order to properly discuss Season 3, I have to take a slight detour to talk about something else that's wrong with this show. Or not even necessarily with the show, but with the community. There is a staggering amount of tourism when it comes to Invincible comic, or the Invincible show, compared to any other superhero franchise I've ever experienced. Everyone, ever since the first season of Invincible came out, just has this strange need to pretend to be an expert on the source material. You know, TikTok and YouTube specifically have been riddled with posers and tourists and frauds pretending as though they know Invincible front to back. I didn't read all of Invincible, and I will never claim that I did. I know exactly what point I stopped at, and we'll probably get there in Season 6. But there's so much debate in TikTok comments and on Twitter amongst people that clearly have not read the material or engaged with it in any meaningful way outside of just watching the show. And what they do is they post spoilers that they don't even have the full context of, and they overplay and overhype certain plot points. And this is something that Season 3 got hit with really badly. If you have not seen Season 3 yet, what are you doing here? Season 4 is about to start. Go catch up. But obviously, the show is teasing the Invincible War throughout a little, like throughout the season. By having the title card change colors and stuff like that, they're teasing what's coming up. So-called Invincible fans, though, overplayed that event and made it seem as though it was going to take up half the season. That's just not the nature of that event. It took one issue. Now, the show is partially to blame for hyping it up for so long, but I think they were trying to avoid the feeling of having it just come out of nowhere. But it does kind of feel as though Season 3 is about the Invincible War, and then Conquest showing up, who, again, Conquest kind of just shows up. You know, they're in the middle of dealing, or they're in the middle of cleanup after what happened with the Invincible War just the day or two before, or they're trying to deal with it. And then Conquest kind of just shows up. But, it feels as though everything else that happens in that season, you know, like dealing with Powerplex and Mark going to the future to deal with the Immortal, all of that kind of starts to feel like padding, because the show has this attitude of like, we know what you're here for, we're going to put it at the end of the season. We're going to actually move events around to make sure that this happens closer to the end of the season. And stuff like that's a little frustrating. And this whole structure that I'm talking about, this lack of an overarching antagonistic force, because it's not even in the background. Like, yeah, they tease Angstrom, but again, he has no direct interaction with Mark until the season's almost over. What I'm talking about comes from the fact that this is kind of unique when it comes to superhero or comic book adaptations in the first place. Typically, when you're watching a show or a movie or playing a game based on a superhero, it's a character that's got decades of lore and story to pull from. There's all sorts of characters and all sorts of stories that you can utilize to craft a brand new narrative. You're hardly ever going to see an adaptation directly from page to screen of a particular arc or run or story, even if it's directly named after it. Case in point, Age of Apocalypse, Infinity War, Civil War, Born Again. None of that operated exactly the way that it did in the comics, or even to halfway accuracy. It's like basic concepts, the gist of what happened in the comics, and then it's a completely different story. And that's only the ones that are directly named after story arcs. But if you watch any Spider-Man show, it's not going to be a direct chronological adaptation of the Amazing Spider-Man comics from the 1960s. That's just not how it works. Invincible is much more like an anime than any other type of comic book adaptation. And when I say that, you probably know what I mean, but in case you're confused by that statement, they're treating the Invincible comic like a manga, and they are adapting the chronologic events that take place in that original story and making some adjustments to make it a little bit more cinematic, to make it a little bit better paced, and to make it flow better in a television format, but still kind of just going through the order of the events of Invincible with some changes being made along the way. That's what happens when a manga gets adapted to an anime. That being said, while Invincible, and really Image Comics in general, operate differently than Marvel or DC do in that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, Invincible is still it's still things happening until a major arc starts, and major arcs don't really start until about 40% of the way through the story. It is kind of things happening from month to month. You've still got your villain of the week, somewhat overarching plots, but you don't have definitive arcs until you're almost halfway through the story. And then that type of structure does start to take up the majority of how the rest of the story plays out, so it will probably sort itself out by the time we get to season 5. We probably won't have this feeling anymore, but still, there's only so many changes you can make to the original source material before it feels like a betrayal. And so that's why, in my opinion, Invincible Season 1 still feels so much more solid and concise than Seasons 2 and 3, just because, honestly, that's the way that the story was written 20 years ago. There's not much that we can change about that, like I said, without changing too many things. All that being said, you can go ahead and let me know if you agree with me or not in the comments as well. Leave a like, all that good stuff. I'll see you when season 4 is finished and we're going to talk about it. Or you'll probably see me in some other video before then, but you know.